Hey Chloe, I think today is a good day for book club.
I think every day is a good day for book club, Katya.
Welcome to our podcast where we talk about the books that we buddy read. Since 2020, we've read over 150 books together.
We're going to cover what we like, don't like, and everything in between. Spoilers abound, so listener, beware.
And today's episode is going to be about Heated Rivalry, the cultural phenomenon that is sweeping the United States and Canada, and I'm sure the rest of the world. An HBO hockey romance show based on a book. I have not watched the show, I've just read the book.
I have not seen it, but one of my good friends absolutely loves it. So she had raved to me about it, but that was about my extent. I mean, I'd heard of it because,
Yeah, of
like you
course, because
said, pretty
everybody's
much
heard of it.
everyone has heard of it, but that was the extent of my knowledge.
Okay, cool. So, like going into this, did you expect to like it or not really?
I wasn't really sure just because in the past, hockey romances, which I feel like are maybe more popular right now than I remember them being in, I don't know, like 5 years ago.
They're really having a moment. In like the
They
past few
are.
years, they've been really having a moment.
Yes, and I've read a few, and none of them have been like standouts for me, I guess, because I'm not
Okay.
that into hockey or really sports in general.
Sure.
So I wasn't sure what to expect, but I saw on Instagram a headline that said Schitt's Creek and Heated Rivalry are the Canada we all hope for. And I love Schitt's Creek, so based on that, I was like, it's gotta at least be pretty good.
Wow. The prides of Canada. The popularity of the show is what made me interested in reading the book because I just recently got HBO Max, so I will be watching it soon. Just like a few weeks ago, a few days ago, I did not have HBO Max, so I said, I'll try reading the book so that I can still be involved. And then I said, Hey Chloe, do you want to read this for book club? And you thankfully agreed. Not, I mean, I would have read it regardless, but still, I think it's more fun for us to talk about it together.
This way we can chat, which is much more enjoyable, I think.
This way we can chit chat. Yes. So now I'm curious because last time we did a podcast for our housemate episode, we kind of talked about genre conventions and what we look for in thrillers. And I thought that that was a really good way to kind of guide our conversation and guide our review. So now I would love to know your romance genre thoughts. Like, what do you look for in your ideal romance book? What are you like measuring Heated Rivalry up against?
It's a really good question. Are you talking tropes or just in general?
In general.
In
I
general.
can go first if that gives you like a better idea.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. In my ideal romance, I really don't want two characters that just feel like they've been pushed together for no reason. I want to feel the chemistry, both physically and emotionally. I want them to have like a puzzle piecey kind of quality, if that makes sense. Like I want their personalities to be really compatible, but not only that, I want the relationship to feel healing in some way. Like I want the other person's
Ooh.
personality to be a good fit for the others in a way that it is they each have something that the other person needs. Like what really sells a romance to me is not just, oh, these two people are both hot and they're both attracted to each other. I want to know like why emotionally does it make sense for them to be together? What are the things that are holding them back, whether that be external factors or internal factors? I usually prefer if there are both. And then what do they do to overcome that? That's kind of the recipe for me of a good romance. And it's not that every romance has to have those things or doesn't have to have those things, but I think that's what makes depth in a romance for me.
Yeah.
So that is always kind of what I'm measuring the romances that I read against. Besides the fact that I usually like to like both characters, I like to be able to root for both characters, but even if I don't like one or the other or both, I want to understand why they like each other and why they're a good fit. I read a lot of romance and I don't know, I just feel like in reading so much romance, it has really helped me to synthesize what I think is good and what I think is bad or what I think is lacking.
Definitely agree in terms of the like emotional aspects. I have a hard time with a romance if it's just the physical attraction or just the sexual attraction because that just feels very surface level to me and I
Sure.
like it to go a little
Shallow.
bit deeper. Yeah, and it's not a bad thing necessarily in a romance. It's just not my style. I like there to be a little bit more layering to it so I can feel like I actually understand why these people are the way they are and why they are the way they are then together as well. So definitely that. And then in terms of maybe just like in general, I love an enemies to lovers. It makes me very
Uh,
happy. I did like the rivalry. I was very excited about the rivalry because I felt like that was going to be fun, especially in such a big pro team or pro teams rather. And to have especially someone from Canada where we know hockey's a big deal, even though hockey's not a big deal to me. But I liked the idea of having a country's icon as one of the characters,
Mhm.
and
Totally.
seeing more of just like his personality coming out and less just about the sports, but more about also who he was as a person and figuring out who he was as a person. And that's something I like in a romance is kind of following their journey, whether it's figuring out something about themselves or just learning how to share a piece of themselves with other people, which I think Shane does both in this book.
Yeah, no, I love that. That like level of vulnerability that is so present in romance novels, and particularly in this one where there are moments of connection or like moments of vulnerability and then retreat because they're like navigating this rival
Yes.
enemy relationship. That feels like kind of good touch points that we can come back to when we're actually talking about the book. You love an enemies to lovers. I love a rivals to lovers specifically because I really enjoy whether it be in like a sports romance or in a like academic rivals sort of romance. There's like a level of respect that's already really present in that because you're only rivals if the other person is really, really good at something. You know what I mean? And in this
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
situation, they're rivals about something that they both like are really, really passionate about. So somebody else being good at anything, I think is attractive, but someone being good at something that you're really passionate about, I think adds another level to it that affects the dynamic.
That's
Ooh,
interesting. I
tropes,
hadn't
so
thought about
fun.
it like that. I love that though. I love the thought behind that you put behind that. I love it.
Thank you. I love talking about romance, so I'm like so excited to get into this. Okay, but before we get into the plot or before we get into the synopsis, if you listener are enjoying this episode so far, be sure to follow us and rate us 5 stars. That really helps us out and helps more people to find us. We also have an Instagram and a TikTok that you can follow at A Good Day for Book Club Pod. And if you have questions, comments, requests, or thoughts about this episode, you can email us at a good day for book club pod at gmail.com.
We would love to hear from you. So heated rival. Is it heated rivalry or heated rivals? I just
Rivalry.
realized we were saying rivals so much, I was going to call it heated rivals. Heated rivalry, what we're talking about today, features two star hockey players. We have Shane, who is our, I would say, main character, and then Ilya, who is, we get some of his point of view, but I would say is maybe more secondary
A
as the
little
main
bit more
character.
secondary, yeah.
And they are rivals, as you would expect from the name. They're both the stars of their respective hockey teams. They both assume that they hate each other because Shane's got the very sweet, kind of down to earth, everybody loves him, boy, young, cute guy persona, I
Very like
guess.
Golden Boy, Captain America kind of energy.
Yes, everybody loves Shane. He's wholesome, and Ilya is the opposite. He's the bad boy of hockey and kind of a womanizer, people know. So they're just kind of understood that they're going to be rivals because of their differing teams and their differing personalities. That changes when they are both using the locker room and they're both using the shower and start to notice that they've got some interest in one another. And Shane, in particular, has not been with a guy before and is very surprised to be experiencing this first, that he's interested in a guy, and then also from his biggest rival.
Because right before this locker room scene, they had been doing press where they were being photographed on the ice, kind of facing off against each other because they were really pushing this, again, rivalry narrative that you mentioned, where they were like, oh, you're from opposite teams and you're complete opposites, and we're going to do everything we can in the media to really emphasize this rivalry. So they were being photographed like facing off against each other and glaring at each other, but they kept giggling and laughing because it was so ridiculous to be acting that way, and then got to the locker room and, like you said, really realized their attraction.
What did you think about the initial, like, when they were on the ice? Did it seem to you like a rivalry, or did you start to feel the romantic tension right away, would you say?
I think I felt the romantic tension pretty early on because it was clear to me that the rivalry was more created and crafted by like the media, created and crafted by outside forces rather than it really being them.
I agree. I think that in particular the press scene where they are pretending that they're playing against each other and they're getting all worked up, but at the same time, it's ridiculous to them. I thought that that was kind of a clue in, just because if they really hated each other, they probably wouldn't be like giggling
Yeah,
on the ice.
exactly. As much as the rivalry is, pushed by this narrative that is created about them, it does have an element of, ooh, this is forbidden, like we're not supposed to like each other. That is, definitely something that adds to the story. After this locker room, I don't even know how to describe it. They're like making eyes at each other. People are aroused. Ilya asks Shane his hotel room number, and later that night they end up meeting in the hotel room and having their first sexual encounter. The first of many. The first half of this book is a lot of sex scenes, but they're spaced out across like a decade or many, many,
Yeah.
many years where we'll get large time jumps, and in each large time jump, there is a meeting between Shane and Ilya where their relationship is developing and they are continuing to meet over and over and over to have these secret rendezvous together, while also, keeping top secret from everybody in hockey that these two very, very, very famous rivals are having a physical relationship.
Which I thought was kind of wild, just the timeline of it, and then also the level of secrecy needed, because, as I have said multiple times now, I don't know anything about hockey. So, like, whether or not pro hockey players are openly out is not something that I'm aware of because I'm not like up to speed on pro hockey players and their romantic lives. So it was interesting to me that this book represents like a different world, if you will, in terms
Sure.
of how they could be out. Like we get to Scott later on, who
Hmm.
chooses to come out, and Shane and Ilya hopefully do eventually. My only real experience with anything hockey related is the Beartown series by Frederick Bachman, which we love, absolutely love. And other than that, I don't know much about hockey culture or the people within it or anything about like the romantic lives of pro hockey players. So it was interesting to me to be reading a book where the characters are so secretive about the fact that they are in a relationship with each other and they aren't comfortable being openly out. And we don't see that until later on, which we'll talk about later. But I just thought that that was interesting that this book is representing something totally different from what it seems to actually be like in the real pro hockey world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's purposeful. To get into the author bio, Rachel Reid has said that her Game Changers book series has come from a place of her being, quote, angry at hockey culture and how clearly homophobic it was and is, and all the other things that made me really ashamed to be a hockey fan. The whole series attacks the NHL and hockey culture quite a bit, and that's referring to this whole Game Changers book series, starting with book one, which is Game Changer, and then book two being Heated Rivalry. She's a Canadian writer who wrote the book under a pen name. The first book, actually, she wrote it and then decided to change the characters so that she could post it on AO3, which is a fanfic website. So she wrote the first book, Game Changer, which is about Scott and Kip. But then instead of immediately like going to publishers with it, she decided to change the characters to Captain America and Bucky Barnes. So she framed it as, even though it didn't start as a Stucky fanfic, she turned it into that so that she could like post it and get some feedback and figure out what she wanted it to be. And she even said in a quote to Salon, honestly, I felt bad about it. I knew this wasn't what Game Changer was. So a few years later, when she was feeling better about her writing, she pulled the story off the website and submitted her manuscript to publishers, and the rest is history. But I just thought that was so
Wild.
interesting that it was like a story that she was interested in publishing, and then it became a Stucky fanfic, and then it went back to being a hockey romance that she wanted to publish.
Totally unintentional, but I've got Captain America right here.
Oh,
He's just
oh,
hanging out
just
back there.
hanging out in the background. Who would have
It's
thought?
like he knew. No,
Yes.
that's wild though. I had no idea that. First of all, I didn't realize it was a pen name, so that's interesting. And then also all of this background to it and getting people's feedback before submitting a manuscript. That's a good idea.
And then, as far as Heated Rivalry specifically, she has said that she doesn't base her characters off of real life people, but that there is some influence from, these real life hockey players that she is a fan of. I didn't know about this until I was doing this research because I'm not like a huge hockey person either, but there was apparently a big rivalry between NHL stars Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby, and there have been a lot of parallels that people have pulled between the Crosby and Ovechkin rivalry and the rivalry depicted in this book. Their entertaining rivalry was an inspiration But she says, I was also inspired by other sports rivalries, by other fictional stories, and by my love of the enemies to lovers and forbidden romance tropes.
Interesting.
She also lists a couple more flashy European players who influenced Ilya and a couple more stoic good boy captains who inspired Shane. I'm not going to try to pronounce all of these names, but
Fair.
there is a list here. I've got the article. I can link it in the notes to the articles that we reference, but I thought that that was really interesting.
That is interesting, and it's cool to see those parallels or to see people draw those parallels, even if they're not specifically based on these real people. I still like to see that stuff and kind of see the influences, especially you and me who are not hockey fans. Like I would never draw the parallels, so I like that someone has done that research, and now I can look at, oh, this is like this person, and it's interesting to see someone who is such a big hockey fan enough to make a series of 6 books have all of these influences that she ties in. I just think that's cool to have that part of it.
Well, I think it makes me curious too, since we mentioned at the top the popularity of hockey romances specifically and of
Hmm.
sports romances in general, in romance right now, how many of those authors are like die-hard sports fans, and how many of those authors are kind of working within which genre conventions are popular right now. And so I think it's nice that she obviously has a passion for hockey and that that's what inspired her to write.
Which is a difference from the book I mentioned in our best and worst books of 2025 episode, Fake Skating. Do
Wow.
not recommend,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Mm-mm.
digress. Okay, so going back to what we talked about at the beginning, when we were talking about what do you look for in a romance, how did this book in particular adhere to some of the things you look for, or maybe depart from some of the things that you want in a romance?
Well, I think the chemistry was very, very apparent between the two of them from the very beginning, not only in terms of like the way they spoke to each other. I felt like they could be really good friends even when they were clashing,
Mhm.
but also obviously like the way that they were attracted to each other. It felt like the yearning and the longing, like the way that they wanted each other across the whole book, across however many years the book takes place over, just like dripped off the page.
Yes, and actually that was something that I struggled with when we first started the book was the number of sex scenes and the amount of the relationship that was based on the physical attraction.
Sure.
Because, like I said, that's not my favorite in a romance. It made me question if I wanted to keep going just because it felt very shallow in terms of their relationship at the beginning. But I am glad that I stuck with it because I got the emotional aspects later as they grew to be more friends and lovers at the same time. I felt
Friends
like
and lovers.
they really turned into like besties by the end, and I really was here for it.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember Chloe wanted to DNF after like our first couple days that we were reading it, and I said, "Can we please keep reading? Maybe it'll be good for us to disagree about a book because we agree about everything all the time." But now look at us. Now we both liked it.
I could talk about how I didn't like the beginning for some
Yeah,
controversy in
I
the
think that's
episode.
fair. I think pacing wise, the
Yeah.
beginning could have been different.
I just need more than just the physical attraction, at least a little sooner on. Like it just started to drag for me because I was kind of at the point where I thought, okay, I get it. The sex is good. I get it. Like, I need more. I need there to be another
Yeah.
level to this relationship. I need it to be more than just sneaking off to a secret apartment or whatever. Which I kind of had mixed feelings about, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
But
the way that he bought a secret apartment specifically so that they could get together was, I mean,
yeah,
he can obviously afford it, but I said, why don't you just meet somewhere else? I don't know. I guess it's the
hotels still
secrecy of it
work.
all.
But as it moved along, then I felt like we got more of the relationship and we got to see more of, in particular, Ilya's personality beyond just the bad boy persona that we talked about. And
Yeah.
we learned more about, like, he has a difficult family. He's not close with his brother, who only contacts him for money, and he has a tough relationship with his dad, and his mother died when he was young. And we learn all of these layers to Ilya that make him feel more like a person than just a character. So as we were getting more of that, I became more attached to the story.
Yeah, and I think that mirrors the fact that as we got those layers about their characters, they became more attached to each other.
Yeah, for sure.
So in that way, I kind of liked the way that it progressed, especially because if we're going to talk about the sex scenes, I really liked that the sex scenes evolved as their relationship evolved. Like it felt to me like they were written differently and more emotionally as it went on and as they realized their feelings for one another. And I liked that as a plot device because I always like in books when everything is necessary. I don't like when things feel super superfluous to the plot. And so the fact that they were specifically used to further the plot and to further the relationship and to really show us the way that their opinions of each other had changed and the way that their feelings about one each and the way that their feelings about one another had changed, I think is valuable. Like regardless of how people feel about smut in books, I like when it feels purposeful.
Yes, that's a good word for it. I did feel like as the book went on, it was more purposeful. And part of what I liked later on then too was that we got more of them just hanging out and more of
Hmm.
them just wanting to get to know each other. And after a while, they both realize that they're in love with the other, but neither one of them wants to be the first to say it. And I just thought it was sweet how they were both falling in love separately, but then when they came together, you could see it there too. And it wasn't like, at least I didn't feel like there were really many scenes where either of them tried to pull away and be like, "Oh no, I don't have the feelings." They maybe didn't address it with each other directly, but they didn't lie either and say, "Oh, this means nothing to me." And
Yeah. Well,
I
I mean,
re
I think Shane was denying it to himself for a while.
to himself, yes, but he didn't say to Ilya like, "Oh, you don't matter to me. This is nothing to me. Like this is whatever." He wasn't hurtful to the other person because
I
that's
see,
something
yeah.
that I don't like in a romance is when
Mm.
they push someone away because they're not ready to address their feelings.
Yeah. I remember there was a moment, I don't remember how far into the book this was, but when they both realized that they were in love with each other and they both were like terrified and they looked at each other like with fear in their eyes. I thought that was so like, oh, my heart. I said that's so sweet.
I want to go back to what you said about how the sex scenes evolved.
Mhm.
Because did you feel that as the sex scenes were evolving over time, did you feel like their inner dialogue or their description of things changed? Like, did you feel that Shane at the beginning felt more immature than Shane at the end?
Um, yes, I think so. Do you disagree?
Interesting. Well, I just felt
I don't know
like
if it's necessarily like that they grew a lot. I think it's more that they learned things about themselves and revealed pieces of themselves that allowed themselves to be vulnerable with one another, and that I think is a kind of growth.
that makes sense. I just felt like Shane's descriptions or his narration felt the same throughout. Like I didn't notice an age difference, I guess is what I'm thinking.
Oh,
Like
I see, sure. Because we start off with them fresh out of high school.
they're
We
very
start with
young.
them, yeah, we start with them fresh out of high school, and then they're in their late 20s at the end of the book.
Yeah, and if you plucked like a scene from the beginning, middle, and end, I feel like the narration would sound the same.
So this is like a writing style critique.
Yes, yes, it
Sure,
is.
that's fair.
Which is maybe not, it's not a bad thing necessarily. I just thought it was interesting that we were moving along so many years and I felt like they felt the same age to me the whole time.
So you don't like that it didn't really change across the book. Did it bother you just the fact that it didn't change, or was it like the simplistic nature of it at all?
The simplistic nature of it didn't necessarily bother me. I did find myself skimming in some spots just because
Okay.
it wasn't super.
Engaging.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, it wasn't bad necessarily, but it wasn't something that I found very gripping at the
Sure.
same time.
Yeah, that's fair.
It bothered me more so in the fact that it was like, if you're gonna do such a significant time jump in your book, then I want to feel that age changing throughout the book. Otherwise, I felt like this book could have taken place over 10 months and it would have felt like they were the same.
I disagree. I disagree that the book could have been successful over the course of 10 months because I think the thing that made the book feel like it was so full of, yearning and longing and like we are so in love, but it's so tragic that we can't be together is the very fact that it took place over such a long period of time. If it was 10 months, I would say, suck it up. Why are you guys being so dramatic? But the fact that they, like, over years and years and years are fighting their feelings for one another, that I think is what really lends to the success of the drama.
I think you're more patient than me.
Oh.
And I just thought, like, when I think about myself and the way I talked or thought of things 10 years ago is very different than the way I think of things now. And
Sure.
which is good. I think that's a good thing,
It's a sign of growth.
growth. And I didn't feel necessarily the growth in that way. I felt the growth in, their openness with each other, but not in terms of just the style of the writing, I guess.
All right. I just feel like there is more to say, but I don't know what it is right now.
See, this is part of why the simplistic writing and them feeling the same age, I think, is problematic because now I don't have other things to say because they felt the same to me pretty much the whole time. They as individuals, not they as a couple.
See, but they as a couple is what makes the romance book a romance book. Like, that's the whole point. And I think they felt different because of the ways that they were able to learn to be vulnerable with each other, not necessarily in the ways that they expressed themselves. Because it's not like they were learning a lot that would make them better writers. They were just learning a lot that made them better communicators with one another.
But who they are as individuals directly affects how they are as a couple. So if I don't see the individual growth, I don't feel as much of the couple growth.
But I disagree that the writing style directly points to
Disagree.
their individual growth. I just think that like there are other ways to depict their individual growth besides like the way that they're writing. Because I think that because I've gone back and read some of my diaries at 18 years old, and the level of syntax being used is pretty similar to what I would write now, but it's like the ideas being expressed and like the way that I felt about situations was pretty different. So I think the technical versus emotional is maybe where we disagree.
I just think if you're going to start a book at 18, at a very, let's say, young and impressionable age, you're fresh into being an adult, and then travel to 10 years later after you've had all of these experiences. They have, in this case, been all over the world playing the hockey, making all the money, doing all the things that they want to do, but they still have the same description of things that they did 10 years ago. You've just had so much life happen in that time. How can you not feel differently? Like,
Like description of
me
what specifically?
the setting around them, the description of how they saw each other, even. It changes in the sense of how they feel about each other. I just wanted to see a little bit more change in the maturity of how they may be described, whether it was a sex scene or just hanging out together, or even just when they were together, the way they thought about each other. It just all felt like it changed in terms of, okay, they like each other more, now they love each other, but it didn't change for me in terms of now that I have been dating so many different people and I've had all these other experiences and I've grown and I've learned from those things. It was just like I like Ilya more versus I see different traits about Ilya because I have had all of these other experiences in the last 10 years. Like Shane dates a girl for a while. I think her name's Rose. But other than the fact that it just makes him miss Ilya more, we don't necessarily see a growth in terms of his relationships and how he describes relationships in general.
I did notice a difference in the way that they spoke about other relationships and the way that they spoke about each other because there was an emphasis that like they would feel satisfied with other people,
Mhm.
especially on behalf of Ilya. He was like, I am satisfied to like do something with one person or like kiss one person and then for it to be over. But with Shane, he like kept wanting to go back and kept wanting to spend time with him. And I don't think that was just their physical relationship. I think it was like their emotional and like cerebral connection as well. I guess I disagree that they didn't compare other relationships or like compare other experiences to their experience with each other
I just mean in sense of like how they grow from that
or how they
relationship.
like frame them.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, as an example, we read Problematic Summer Romance, and there's a time jump in that book. And in some of the first scenes with the main characters, she's younger and she sees things a certain way because she has more of a youthful lens on them. And then we flash forward, whatever it is, 18 months or 2 years later, and she has a more, I guess, jaded in this case, outlook of things. But it changes because she's had these 2 years of experiences. She's gotten through these crappy relationships. She's experienced more life and therefore looks at things a little bit differently. And I feel like there's a change in her perspective. Whereas as we follow Shane and Ilya through the 10 years, it just kind of feels like it all flows together versus there's not a big moment in time that they learn from.
I don't know. I thought that in this it was kind of the reverse. I thought they both seemed more jaded at the beginning about
Mhm.
like the fate of what a relationship between them could be, or the fate of what any like queer relationship in the hockey world could be. And as time goes on, they're more willing, because of their experiences together, to be more hopeful and to like take the risk. And it's when Scott, as a hockey player, kisses his boyfriend at a hockey game, that Ilya is finally willing to really realize the importance of representation in the community, and that like if they could do it, maybe we could too, and that opens the door. That I don't know, I do think that that's growth in the way that they view the relationship.
That makes sense. That's fair. I think I wanted the writing to change. If we're gonna
Okay.
follow a 10-year journey, like I want to see a little bit of the aging, not just, okay, now it's June 2017. Now it's July 2019. Now
Sure.
it's whatever. Like, I don't necessarily need a timestamp unless I feel like there's a significant event in one of those years that's going to change the subsequent years. And I guess I didn't get that.
I see. I don't know. I think again, like the number of years is important because of like the yearning in the relationship. I just again, I am maybe more patient, but
Just not patient.
it taking place over like a couple months, I think would change the story exponentially.
Can we talk about the fact that when they came out to different people, it was just okay, which
I
reminded me
loved that.
of, I loved that. It
I
reminded
really
me of
liked
Schitt's
that.
Creek. Like
Yeah.
I said earlier, you know I love
Uh-huh.
Schitt's Creek, so I'm going to
Hmm.
bring it back. When Patrick comes out to his parents, it's just okay. And there's not like a big thing. There's not a big plot about it. It's just that, like for example, Shane's parents in this, like Patrick's parents in Schitt's Creek, are just like okay. And I loved that. I loved that it was just something that they saw because they mentioned too, like, well, we kind of knew, we had a feeling,
Hmm.
and they don't ask him to justify any of his actions other than that. They thought, does it have to be your biggest hockey rival? Because we love hockey.
I know his mom was so cute in that scene because Shane doesn't even like formally come out to them. It's his dad catches Shane and Ilya together at Shane's cottage, where they go because I liked this too, the symbolism of Shane inviting Ilya to his most favorite special place that he was so hesitant to let him into. I feel like that really was, indicative of the walls that he had torn down because he wanted to make the relationship work. Anyway, um Shane's dad runs into them at the cottage, and that's how he finds out. And so Shane and Ilya then drive to Shane's parents' house so that they can sit down and Shane can say, yes, you did catch me making out with my biggest hockey rival. Surprise. And his mom is so cute in that scene. Her biggest concern is, have you been letting him win? How is this relationship affecting your hockey career?
I loved his dad too. His dad is like, I'm so sorry I interrupted. We just needed dishwasher pods or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
so random.
Yes. But I liked that. And I liked that the ending in general felt happy or hopeful, but not necessarily unrealistic, because their relationship is still pretty secret from most people, but it's not a secret from every person in their life anymore. They're willing to be a little bit more comfortable with it, a little bit more open with it. Shane also tells one of his very good friends. They have dinner together. It's very sweet.
And at the end, we should talk about too, Ilya's contract is coming up with the team that he's on, and he moves to a team that's closer so he and Shane can see each other more. But also, this new team is not as big of a rival as Ilya's previous team. So it's kind of like they can take a little bit of a step back from the rivalry in that regard and then have more time without so much of the on ice pressure. And they agree that together they're going to start a foundation, and that can be something that they announce to the public as a way to kind of introduce themselves to the public as friends. And then, at least I like to believe that after that it builds and they eventually are able to be open about being a couple. But in the book, they do it as friends. And I thought that it was just a really cool and, like you said, realistic way to kind of leave that door open for them later.
Definitely. Because I know in the things that I've been reading about Rachel Reid, she did make a point to talk to some gay men in her life about like what they would look for in a gay rom-com or a gay romance. And there was an emphasis on a happy ending and a lack of suffering, because that is like such a theme in a lot of queer romance stories is that there's so much sadness and so much suffering. And so she wanted to make sure that there was a happy ending. And I mean, I think that that's really good.
I think it's cool that she reached out to people and asked them that, and then that she was then able to create that happy story for them and not have to emphasize the suffering, because I think that it's nice to see the normalization in the book and have that where you can read it and just see it, and it's not something that has to be fought for because it is just accepted as it should be.
Switching gears a little bit, one thing that I have seen critiques about, both in regards to the book and the show, and that I kind of wanted to make sure to mention, is that Shane is a half Asian, half white character because his mom is Asian Canadian. And although it is mentioned, it's like such a small part of his character that you really could have taken that out and it wouldn't have had any kind of effect on the story. Um, and I guess just like coming from the perspective of a fellow Asian, I would have loved to for there to be any conversation about like representation, since there is so much focus on like homophobia in hockey. Was there ever
Mhm.
any kind of conversation about like racism in hockey or diversity racially in hockey? I think that was maybe like a missed opportunity to even if it wasn't like a huge theme, if it was just like touched on. I didn't really feel like it made like a very big impact on his character. And I think that that kind of thing, like your cultural background, is impactful, especially because so much of Ilya's character is the fact that he's Russian. Like they talk about it all the time, and obviously that makes sense, he's from Russia, but I don't think that it is any less important to emphasize the fact that Shane is half Asian.
No, I think that's interesting too, because it is like you said, if that wasn't mentioned in the book, the story itself would be pretty much the same. But then also to put so much emphasis on Ilya's background is interesting, and to not have Shane reflect on any of that or talk about it a little bit more just would have been nice to see, especially to have more layers and more complexity to it that I would have found engaging and
Mhm.
less simplistic.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like a colorblind approach, I guess, to the storytelling, which can work in some places, but I
Mhm.
just prefer, maybe that's just because I'm Asian. I like to have it be mentioned, but I thought about that too. Did reading the book make you want to watch the show?
I am curious about the show. I've heard such good things about the show, and I will need to renew my HBO Max subscription soon once all of The Pit is out. So at that at that
I
time,
do. I love the pit.
I love The Pit,
It's so good.
but I'm
Should we
waiting
just
till
do
it's
a
all
podcast
out.
talking about the pit? I know it's not a book,
Yes,
but I love
we
the
should
pit.
though. I would be more than happy to gush about The Pit. So once that's out, I am interested in watching it. I think it would be good, especially just from some of the press that I have seen about the actors who play the two guys whose names I don't know offhand. But I have seen some stories with them talking about pro hockey players who have reached out to them about how they represent hockey and how they represent the gay community and how they do such a good job in this show. And so seeing some of that coming through makes me more curious to watch it, because knowing that they are getting that positive feedback from peers or from true pro hockey players is just really interesting to me. So I would like to watch it.
I also wonder, since the book is so internal and has so much just dialogue where they're thinking about their feelings and fighting their feelings, how that will
Mhm.
translate to a visual medium. And I mean, I don't doubt that it's good because of how many good reviews there have been, but I wonder how they translate that. Does it make you want to read other books in the series?
That's a good question.
Because they
I
follow different characters, but I think later in the series we loop back around and follow Shane and Ilya again.
Interesting. I would be interested in Shane and Ilya's story later. And I think I looked at a couple of the other books and I saw like one is a hockey player and a musician, I think.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was interesting, because I thought going into it that they were all about all hockey players, just
Sure.
because all I knew of it when we went into it was Heated Rivalry.
Uh-huh.
So I do think it would be interesting to read a hockey player and someone more artistic, someone more on the musical side of things who, from what I remember of the description, doesn't really care about hockey. So I think that could be really interesting.
Does reading Heated Rivalry make you interested in reading more sports romance?
If it's a book that's more about the romance and less about the sports, I guess I'm not opposed. I wouldn't say that after reading this, I am on
Inspired.
the hockey romance train. Like I don't have a problem with it. I don't really. get it though, to be honest. Like I don't really understand what the big deal is or why it's so popular right now, but I don't have anything against it, so I'm not against reading it.
Okay. Yeah, because I
What
know
about
that there are
you?
a bunch of like adaptations coming out, like Elle Kennedy's The Deal, that was a hockey romance that's coming to Amazon Prime. There's one that just came out on Netflix that's I think something about an edge, finding her edge, cutting edge, something like that. That just came out on Netflix. So hockey romances not have moved now from the book world to the television adaptation world, and is just becoming more and more popular. And so I think based on that, it's not necessarily that I'm like super into hockey romances, but I'm just into romance generally. So if it's popular, I'll try it.
Do we know if this is making people care about actual hockey? Like how more girls and women like football because of Taylor Swift. Like, is there a
Mm.
similar thing? More girls and women like hockey now?
I saw something recently where there are girls who will go to hockey games and call it a boy aquarium, where they're just like ogling the boys playing hockey.
Boy aquarium.
Isn't that funny? I do think it's a little bit creepy because it is kind of objectifying. Not even kind of, it's super objectifying. And if we were to flip the genders, it would be even worse in a way. So it's like, yikes, you know?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it is something that I have seen, not so much in the TikToks themselves, because that's not like my algorithm, but I've seen it in video essays about the romance genre. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Okay, can you see that?
I can, yes, the boy aquarium.
Okay, I searched the boy aquarium on TikTok. It's just all of these girls going to hockey games and they're tapping on the glass.
Oh, that's kind of unsettling when I see it, actually. That kind of makes it worse.
Unsettling. It does make me uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. I do think it's super objectifying,
I thought it
but
was
it
fun,
is a
like
thing,
funny as a
you know?
term, but now that I see it, I'm like, because now I'm really thinking about if it was flipped and if it was guys at a girls' sporting event, and it's like gross.
Yeah, then it's gross either way.
I guess hockey does look like a fish tank at the same time with the like the shield,
The glass.
.
Okay, that's it, just so you can see.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I do enjoy a hockey game, not as an
Really?
aquarium.
I could count the number of hockey games I've been to in my life on one hand, and the most recent one, we were sat very close to the players' bench, and the whole place was cold and smelly. It was so smelly. And I just like didn't enjoy the experience because of that. Like a sports game is a sports game to me. Like they all kind of feel the same in the way that they're like staged in terms of the music, and then they do stuff and the announcer says things and I say, I don't know what's happening, let me go get some snacks. Like that's my experience of going to sporting events. So it wasn't any worse or better in terms of the game itself, but vibes wise, very smelly. I wish we had sat in a different place. So,
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be close enough to be in like the sweat, right? Sweat range. Fun fact though, like one of the first hockey games I ever went to, I got Jason Earl's autograph.
of Hannah
So
Montana fame?
of Hannah Montana fame. He was
Oh
at the game
my.
signing autographs. I don't know why, but I got a poster signed
Of
by Jason
Hannah.
Earls. So it's a little fun fact for you.
Wow.
Shockingly, that did nothing to impact my interest in hockey, but it
Where were
happened at a
you?
hockey game. The Sioux Falls Stampede. I
That's
don't know
so
why he was
random.
there.
Why was
I
Jason
know.
Earls there?
I have no idea. He was there signing autographs. I was like 10.
All right, does that bring us to the end, or is there anything else you want to mention?
I think that brings us to the end. I can't think of anything else.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Please let us know your heated rivalry thoughts, whether that be about the show or the book. Be sure to follow us and rate us 5 stars. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at A Good Day for Book Club Pod. Send us an email at agooddayforbookclubpod@gmail.com. Anything else, Chloe?
Happy reading.
Happy reading.